haven't said anything yet. Great for you to be here. I'm just so tickled. All my friends who write and those who do other kinds of artwork, make sure you look at all these things here, which you can bid on because it's fundraiser for the library stuff. And not to mention the puzzles or those games you can buy. So this is a collection of poems that I've put together, and they are poems that have been written over the last decades, several decades, some of them. You may have seen some of these in earlier, compendium or something, but I've probably changed them since then.
There's some people in the back that are having a hard time hearing you.
Oh,
would you like to try the mic?
Sure, I'll use it.
Hello. I'm gonna turn up a little bit.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me now? I'll bet you can hear me. Okay, Jean. Thank you. I don't know if I can do that and turn my pages at the same time, so I might just have to talk more loudly. I was saying that these poems, some of them have been in earlier publications, but I've changed almost all of them one way or another. Most of the ones that you'll hear tonight are pretty new poems, and I'm just going to read until you tell me to stop or I get too tired. Okay, and then we'll eat or drink. So I've got to put this down though, because I really have to look at this. I'm not one who memorizes poems. I have to read them. So in honor of winter, I'm going to start out with a couple that have to do with snow and fog and things like that. And I've noticed in putting together this, I write a lot about water. It may be because I'm a Pisces, but I don't know if that has anything to do with it or not. So this is called An Exaltation of Stillness. Delicate hoarfrost among the branches is all that remains of a fog that lingered through dawn. In a muted and brilliant landscape, feather ice on crusted snow tells of fast-moving rabbits. Before this afternoon's interrupted thaw, crystal daggers released their snowflake essence, and the flow now waits, poised and opaque. Like a change of constellations, the song of a summer coyote becomes the cold sound of an owl. And while I stand here in the bristling chill to receive an exaltation of stillness, it's a welcome, echoing call. This one is called The Photographers, and it's a poem that I wrote about an event Nancy and I were on coming back from Lakeview. We walk the high dunes in the last light, feast at the table of sunset. In the valley, fog, flat like a river, drifts between the hills. The moon will be here soon, flaunting brilliance in a dare to the shimmering mist. By then, the Brazilian flying saucer cloud, glowing red, will have vanished with the rest. In its place, the eerie ghosts of dusk will never capture. This one is called There Was a Fire. It has another name, but the name is, I've decided I didn't like it. There was a fire. Then snow took from sight the cinders of the vast crematorium and mothered the remains. There was melt that washed away the taste of blackness, but left trees in their skeletal frailty. There were grasses that hastened to grow in the charring, fueling their season. a golden mirage pastured in waste. There was a fire. So from that kind of water, we're going to go to the desert. This is something about Badwater Basin, never mind the name. Badwater Basin in Death Valley, which is salt. Salt, the essence of this desiccated floor where order reigns in crowns of crystals, thrust up in an attitude of eternal thirst, disguised as the white death of desert scarcity. Several years ago, I went to Guatemala, and so the first 3 parts of this poem have to do with my being there and things that I learned or saw. And the last part you'll recognize possibly as being here at home. It's called Processions. The lake made no claim, just received him. Every day the family walks along the water to meet the boat with supplies from Panajachel. Every day they stop on the path and tend the cross for their child, place fresh flowers, choke on fading memories. Some nights, fatherless Mayan boys stay in a church in Antigua with a brown Jesus and a pale Mary no one understands. They were invited in at last after years of being prayed robbers as they ran in the dark to their mothers after shining shoes like mine. Now, a procession of boys runs in daylight, taking fewer chances, taking home more coins. 100 candles illuminate prayers and offerings of the hopeful in Zunil, who take their place in a procession to carry the Virgin's throne through the square and past the tombs. They enter the old church and turn their backs on a shrine to the wicked saint Maximon. In the desert, along a rural highway, I find old roadway shrines, bare, wind-battered crosses, some with faded pretend flowers no one comes to refresh. There were no comings and goings to groom the hallowed ground or call out to the beloved with tear-drenched sleeves and fresh paint for the names. Sky weaving. Skeins of geese come in singing, weaving rhythms as they spell one another. Their lines and circles saying, "Follow me down." My lines start out tuneless, then waver and curl as I untangle my curiosity. Words need to travel some distance with me before I hear their beats and ringing. I would ask the birds how far they've flown, but they won't know my words, these birds, these feathered singers who lead and follow until they're woven into one song. This poem is in honor of and remembering Eudora Welty, who was a Southern writer. And so she said in one of the things that I read from her that she had springs that fed her stream. So this is what springs feed my stream. For you it was clear. Springs of lightness and dark fed your stream. Independence and guilt were the abiding forces that shaped your telling. I return to the riverbanks to find what feeds my stream, the springs of my telling. The forces at work may be identity and change, felt in the constancy of a full-on rush or in the delicious trickle of memory come to impress me during sleeping hours. I've tried to name myself, then surrendered to the undeniable immediacy of change. And I've thrilled to recognition, then known the dismal truth of biting another hand. I remember the last person I saw dying and witnessed grace in the wake of effort. In a continuum as sure as winter will interrupt autumn's slumber in a fast march to decaying rhythms. Comings and goings are the springs that shape my telling. The forces of every Mobius strip that reveals our desire to declare, followed by our impulse to change, will carry me in a headlong tilt until the stream runs dry. This next poem is about kind of a recognizable sunrise. And there's a word in it, call. And it's not call. It's the membrane that surrounds a child's head before it's born. It's a membrane in our bodies that surrounds some of us, some parts of us, I should say. So that's the word, that's the meaning of the word you'll hear. This is called a borning. Blood on the horizon, torn as we are from the call of night. Every moon and planet, midwife to each aborning. Every and each of us, slipping out of the life-giving darkness, eager and rising into the long, slow burn of dawn. This is called Ripe Orgasmic Earth. In a sharp-edged canyon, where angled boulders lie by the river, time and I collided and left me trying to remember before there was rimrock jutting from the slopes, once smooth and rounded like a row of children's knees. Before faulting raised buttresses and spires stood in tumbled wastes, before craggy skirts flowed away from the relic islands. Let us recollect upheavals that birthed basaltic pillars, the times when steep escarpments paraded with these ancient palisades, long tempered by the ageless heat and cold. In another 200 million years, let's talk again and remember when we anguished over deep divides that split the barren plains, seized the stony cliffs and rocky bones, and held them in the memories we claimed, steeped in castle canyons, with the offspring of the ripe orgasmic earth. Apricot rain, meaning color, not fruit, but sort of fruit. A crimson swath, are there any children here? A crimson swath follows the apricot rain. An orb of fading gold slides between the distant buttes, a brazen woman in slow, lingering planetary sex. Gilded clouds thunder me, electrified, the taste of ozone held in my mouth like the seed of round fruit. You remember about Stephen Meek and the misguided, his misguiding of the wagon train? Well, this is about that. with the yoke we share, traveling Stephen Meek's Cutoff. Have you all seen that film that was made here about that?
Yeah.
Yeah, you should look at it. It's not a fantastic film, but it's us. It's our local territory. So, the yoke we share. Daybreak walks with me as I follow our wagon wheels over the fractured ground, the remains of this bleak journey, not enough to restore me to myself, not enough to atone for so many bleached bones. I like to think we could have taken another trail, but I was looking backward and took no steps to make a difference. I want to believe a journey to somewhere else would have left us settled, beginning to be of a place, part of the land. Then I couldn't heap blame for your agreeing with the other men to let Mr. Meek guide us, our doubts waiting for his as he steered us wrong. Then we would not trudge through our hopes and silently condemn the yoke we share in denying we were wrong to come this way. Evening lies with me and taunts with visions of widows in the tall grass, waiting for someone to build a monument, some place to come back to. You know, Marjorie Thalen, now of York, Pennsylvania, Marjorie had sent me a book written by someone. And I sent it back and I said, this person is so preachy. Now, reading some of this, I can realize I'm kind of preachy too sometimes. This is called Peace Has Nothing. Peace, the indwelling, has no vessel, nothing to cling to, no cloaking mist. Like a ghost in the mind, a sea without boundaries, stillness in the wind, the conundrum of peace has nothing to signify. A search for peace may bring the quietude of bliss, and a rhythm may lull you into dreaming, but a stilled mind or easy dreams can't replace the stones in your belly. The weight of sorrows and desires must be lifted by forgetting the world. I cover my head, a fool who thought peace would flood an empty bowl, who forgot this vessel is filled with my name. Gravity stillness. At night, I lie down and wait for the flesh to hang on my bones. I like to disappear in my gravity stillness, sinking through webs and mirages. Some mornings I'm left with fetters of an unknown dream, wispy strands that seem attached. The web quivers as if the mind brought food. Then a thread goes taut, and a mirage of thought evaporates my tenuous connection. There are times I'm not ready to emerge, would rather be alone to drift. But words arrive, searching for a way out, looking for a place to line up and make a meaning. Not yet, I'll say. Not yet. Wait for me over there. I suppose one day I may lose myself, crossing the divide. For there is no denying that the appeal that stretches toward me from nowhere and winds my absent mind with the sky. This is called To Sleep on Stones. Let me sleep in a dry creek bed on stones smoothed and broken. They will impress on me stillness as I turn and turn, restless for nothing to occupy my mind. My cheek will have the imprint of leaves that fell with the grace I look for from trees that watched as the old creek carried all the water born of its spring. Tangled roots worry the dry stones in search of that old water. We are all thirsty for memories of a drift downstream. Let me sleep in this dusty bed on the quiet rocks among the storied leaves with no drifting words or tumbling dreams. How we doing? We okay?
My soul is fed.
Well, maybe I'll read a couple more and then you can get up and refresh your coffee. Have another donut. But I won't let you go then. You have to come back. Okay, this one's called Beetle Clean Skulls. And it's been around for quite a while, and one version or another. When the beasts have sucked the marrow from our bones and our skulls are beetle cleaned, there'll be no one to talk to. Skeleton particles may regenerate as quail chicks, but our wicked dreams and half-baked schemes evaporate with what we learned and didn't say. Our grace drifts in the ether to resorb into the collective with all the wisdom we were hiding. Do not call out for us or beseech the arch of the sky. There's no journey, no one to reach in this temporal rest. Let the quietude that follows grief lift your mourner's veil. Okay, here's a really maudlin one, but I love this poem. That's a good one to take a break after. It's called The Sorrow We Give Up Before Peace. Is there anything deeper than sorrow? Not doubt, despair, not indwelling sadness, nor misery, often self-appointed, not even the agony of grief with beginnings and endings. Nothing is deeper than the sorrow we give up before peace. When the too full heart that cannot wail accepts its muted song. When the stilled mind rises from the pond of absolution. When the deep sigh signals a return to peace in the emptied wholeness. Okay, let's take a break. I have some great poems to read still, but anyway, I have books if you're interested in purchasing. Cash, credit card, or checks, $12 a piece. I'd be happy for you to take one home. And I'm going to go get the coffee pot. Women are meant to be rooted and keep grounded their men who reach for the stars. This tree, with roots deep-reaching, limbs far-branching, signifies the need for a life to spread and fasten, drift and anchor, fruit and flower. Look to the stars. I will be here to hold you close to the earth for power. With every resolve to shake blight from these limbs, I reach and fall, seek and stumble. But these risks are earned splendor enough to make my heart race. And when after all my melodrama, I burst outward bound to claim my share of heaven, I hope you'll clasp me tight to your heart and hold my feet here on the ground. But without your comfort, steady gaze, and willing hands, my trials, star flights, outbursts have the hesitation of not wanting to endanger all the memories we've planned. So speaking of star flights, I worked at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory for 6 years in spaceflight operations. So I got hired, and just a couple of days before I actually went to work, one of the unmanned space things was to impact the moon, one of the Rangers, at JPL in the 60s. That lunar probe might have disrupted our whole solar system, pushed our orbital companion out enough to bury Venus or reveal it. I ran outside to watch in case the moon exploded from the impact, as the tidal basins of the Pacific held sway. This also refers to space in a way. This is called stage door. And it didn't occur to me until sometime later that you might think of this as relating to the theater, but I don't really know that that's what it's about at all. You went along and did this and that, and one day you found a scene you'd like to be part of, though it seemed those were characters, not your friends. That should have been a clue. You came out from the star field like the rest of us. But when there wasn't any way to read ahead in the script, you weren't sure how to tell the players apart from their costumes. In that scene, there were no lines to follow. So all along you were ad-libbing in a fantasy of yours that you believed. At curtain call, you held your breath instead of flowers, found a stage door. Exit your character, the part you thought you'd chosen. Makes you wonder what friends are for. This is an old poem called Jonah. Back to the water and the rain and all that. There's a sky trying for glory, a storm making something of itself by swallowing each distant butte, licking every hilltop. The hovering gray mass opens its jaws to take in the valleys. Sage-filled gorges and juniper slopes melt into the greedy maw. Looking into this dark mouth, I see nothing but blackness and hammering rain, and I'm Jonah and his misadventure with a whale. This one's called Rabbit Road. This is a true story, I think. Heading west on the highway, I travel 7 miles of Rabbit Road. 18-wheelers have reduced their dimensions to a new kind of mile marker. I do my best not to drive over their smoothed-out hides, ironed before some carrion eater could clutch them and give them wings. Okay. Here's a couple of preachy ones. I'm a completely non-political person, but sometimes. This is called revolution. What would you say now, Mr. Jefferson, with all the wisdom of your years? Victors are sucking the lifeblood of our democracy, and tyrants belittle the republic. The people follow, Mr. Jefferson. Without a leader, they mind the machine. What would you have us resist this time? Even with all our advances, what we've learned hardly contributes a speck of clarity or measures up to one ancestral brilliance. Our best intentions will not amount to a grain of sand, nor alter the path of any asteroid, nor rescue us, Mr. Jefferson. You did your part to wake us, you and Mr. Adams, but sleep does not seduce us. It is a deeper stupor that grips our nascent mind. We chase ourselves around the globe and see distortion in the mirror where once the heroes stood. The drama of our years intensifies, but our revolutions are only circular. Protectors square off, and the exceptional land that once was ripe lies weary. Agonies of the West made new again, Mr. Jefferson, but without innocence, and we without a calling. We cover our spirits in acquiescence, obliged to become fossils in the layered earth, tools and treasures left to the discovery of the future. Okay. How about, instead of water, let's do fire. This is also a true story. Klamath fire. A crimson globe appears in the late day dull and layered smoke, our solar yoke breaking through all that's left of his fiery breath after the dragons roar across the Klamath hills. Okay. More water. Shadow casting. Do you remember the movie A River Runs Through It? Okay. Well, Paul practiced what he called shadow casting, which was a more or less working up of an appetite. And he would cast out and not let his fly touch the water. And it would create a set shadow. He would work up, and he would have the trout working up their appetites. I dawdled on the bridge, waiting for sunrise, watching. The river commands order. Even so, small waves born in the holes of the swift and eddying flow leap upstream, climbing back over stones with a will to disobey. At a bend in the Santiam, a thin mist collects where the rills come down. Wisps of fog hover above the reaches, for in my mind, McLean's man, Paul, is plying his magical shadow casting, and his fish with their appetites rise eager and silver. Okay. This is one of the very few poems that has any kind of rhyme to it. This is kind of a true story. I had a dream about what you might think of as a pearly nautilus, but it's also called a paper nautilus, which is what this is called. This is salted footprints. I dreamed a paper nautilus. I could not speak. She could not see. but she understood what I was thinking, and I heard the words she spoke to me. Your constructs give your questions form, but you always reach the same conclusions. Cast your concepts aside and wait and let the tide erase illusions. The structure of the pearly nautilus is matched by our heavenly galaxy, a perfected spiral growing outward from a matrix spawning serenity. I thought the clarity of the asking came in the forming of the question, but what I'd asked was never answered, and I was left with my reflections. Her chambers echoed all my wondering, though still no words had come from me. She spoke of a constant crashing thunder. It was my turmoil, not the sea. The nautilus said, "Hear this. It's time to shed those dreams you're reaching for. Time to quiet the asking voices. Let stillness find its way ashore. Let ocean breezes blue the sky and cheat the mist of its clinging damp. Taste the briny seaweed brew. Blow the sand from the beaconing lamp. Use the incessant sound and wind and water curls that jar the shore. Leave your tangles in the reeds. Leave salted footprints at the door. Pace yourself with the ebbs and flows. Keep your lens wide open, clean. Slowly lose your learned focus. Commit to the sea your blinding dream. I dreamed a paper nautilus. There was a guise I thought was me. Her wisdom made that very clear. I could not speak. She could not see. Okay. This will be it. This is called tectonic dancing. Oklahoma's earthquakes have nothing on me. Hell, I shudder sometimes. The constant interaction of desire and death. And I frack, too, driving the mind deep to force glimmers from the innocent landscape. I'm happy entertaining my cavernous wants, divining the past and the future. So don't add me to the baggage of a scared nation waiting for the next big one. I can't be worried about a little tectonic dancing while fissures still yield a trickle of creative juices out of my quivering soul. Thank you very much for being here. And I've enjoyed very much entertaining you with these poems, so thank you. Thank you. Well, I had practice with
How much are they?
12